The world stopped spinning the moment Ethan Caldwell saw her face on the billboard. Her eyes, those piercing blue eyes he'd once drowned in, stared back at him from a faded advertisement for a small-town bakery in upstate New York. He slammed on the brakes, his sleek black Mercedes screeching to a halt on the empty highway, heart pounding like it hadn't in a decade. 10 years ago, Ethan had walked away from Riley Parker, the only man he'd ever loved. He'd been young, ambitious, and terrified of what it meant to love someone so fiercely in a world that didn't always understand. Back then, Ethan was just a scrappy kid from a small town, clawing his way toward a tech empire that would make him a millionaire by 30. Riley, with his quiet strength and unshakable kindness, had been his anchor, but Ethan had cut the rope. He'd left without a word, chasing dreams of wealth and power, believing love could wait. It didn't. Now, at 32, Ethan was a name whispered in Silicon Valley boardrooms, his face plastered on Forbes covers, his life a polished facade of success. But the billboard, Riley's Bakery, Riley's eyes, cracked that facade wide open. He didn't know why he'd taken this detour through the sleepy town of Willow Creek, but fate had a way of laughing at his plans. The billboard wasn't just a memory, it was a summons. Ethan pulled into Willow Creek as dusk painted the sky in hues of orange and pink. The town hadn't changed much. Same old Main Street, same quaint shops, same whispers of judgment from folks who'd known him as the preacher's son. He parked outside Parker's Pastries, the bakery from the billboard. Through the window, he saw Riley behind the counter, his blonde hair slightly longer, his frame still lean but stronger, hardened by time. Ethan's breath caught. Riley was laughing with a customer, his smile as warm as ever. But there was something new, a weight in his eyes, a story untold. Then Ethan saw the boy. A child, no older than 9, darted from the back of the shop, carrying a tray of cookies. His dark hair fell in messy curls, his green eyes sparkled with mischief, and his face, God, his face, was a mirror of Ethan's own at that age. The world tilted again. Ethan gripped the steering wheel, his knuckles white. Who was that boy? He stepped out of the car, the autumn air sharp against his skin. The bell above the bakery door jingled as he entered, and Riley's laughter died mid-breath. Their eyes locked, and for a moment, time collapsed. 10 years of silence hung between them, heavy and electric. Ethan, Riley said, his voice low, almost a whisper. It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, a plea, a wound reopened. Riley. Ethan managed his throat tight. I didn't know you were still here. Riley's jaw tightened, but before he could respond, the boy bounded over. Dad, can I have one of the chocolate chip ones? He asked, oblivious to the tension. Dad. The word hit Ethan like a punch. He stared at the boy, then at Riley, searching for answers in those familiar blue eyes. Riley's gaze flickered with something, fear, maybe, or guilt, and Ethan knew, without a doubt, that this child was his. The bakery smelled of cinnamon and nostalgia, but the air between Ethan and Riley was thick with unspoken questions. Ethan sat at a corner table, nursing a coffee Riley had wordlessly handed him. The boy, introduced as Noah, was now in the back, humming as he helped clean up. Ethan couldn't stop staring at him. Every gesture, every tilt of his head, was a ghost of his own childhood. How had he not known? How had Riley kept this from him? I didn't leave because I wanted to, Ethan said finally, breaking the silence. His voice was raw, the polished billionaire nowhere to be found. I thought I was doing the right thing. For both of us. Riley leaned against the counter, arms crossed, his expression unreadable. You left without a goodbye, Ethan. You didn't even leave a note. I woke up one morning, and you were gone. Do you know what that does to a person? Ethan winced. He'd replayed that night 1,000 times. The way he'd packed his bags in the dark, convincing himself Riley would be better off without him. He'd been 22, drowning in shame and ambition, terrified of his father's wrath and the town's judgment. He'd told himself Riley would move on, find someone better. But looking at him now, Ethan saw the scars he'd left behind. I was a coward, Ethan admitted. I thought I could outrun who I was. But I never stopped loving you. Riley's eyes softened for a fraction of a second before hardening again. Don't say that like it fixes anything. You don't get to walk back in here after 10 years and act like nothing's changed. I'm not trying to fix it, Ethan said, leaning forward. I saw your face on that billboard, and I couldn't drive past. And now, he glanced toward the back, where Noah was stacking trays. Riley, is he? Riley's face paled. He opened his mouth, then closed it, his hands gripping the counter. You don't get to ask that, he said finally. Not yet. The bell jingled again, and a customer walked in, breaking the moment. Riley slipped back into his role as the charming baker, but Ethan saw the tremor in his hands. He stayed until the shop closed, watching Riley move with a grace that still made his heart ache. When Noah ran out to say goodnight, his green eyes met Ethan's, and something unspoken passed between them. A spark of recognition, maybe, or just wishful thinking. As Riley locked up, Ethan stood outside, the cool night air biting at his skin. Can we talk? He asked. Really talk? Riley hesitated, then nodded. Tomorrow. My place. But Ethan, this doesn't mean anything's forgiven. Ethan nodded, his chest tight with hope and fear. He'd built a fortune from nothing, but this was the hardest thing he'd ever faced. As he drove to the town's only inn, Noah's face haunted him. A child who looked just like him. A love he'd left behind, and a truth that could change everything. Riley's house was a small, weathered cottage on the edge of Willow Creek, surrounded by maple trees ablaze with autumn color. Ethan stood at the door the next evening, clutching a bottle of wine he'd bought on impulse, feeling like a stranger in a place he'd once called home. The door creaked open, and Riley stood there, his expression guarded but softer than the night before. Come in, Riley said, stepping aside. The house smelled of cedar and fresh bread, and Ethan's heart twisted at the familiarity. Noah was at a friend's house, Riley explained, giving them space to talk. Ethan was grateful and terrified. They sat at a worn wooden table, the wine untouched between them. Ethan wanted to reach across, to touch Riley's hand, but the distance between them felt like miles. I need to know, Riley, he said, his voice low. Is Noah mine? Riley's eyes darkened, and he looked away, staring at a framed photo on the wall. A younger Riley holding a newborn Noah, both of them smiling. You don't get to just show up and demand answers, Riley said. You left me, Ethan. You left us. Us. Ethan's voice cracked. So he is. Yes, Riley snapped, his voice sharp but quiet. Noah's your son, but don't you dare think that gives you any claim to him. You weren't there when I found out I was pregnant. You weren't there when I had to figure out how to raise him alone in this town, with people whispering behind my back. Ethan's world spun. He'd suspected, but hearing it confirmed felt like a tidal wave. Why didn't you tell me? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Riley laughed, a bitter sound. Tell you? I didn't even know where you were. You vanished, Ethan. No phone number, no address. I wasn't going to chase a ghost. Ethan's hands trembled as he ran them through his hair. I didn't know, Riley. I swear if I'd known. You would have what? Riley interrupted, leaning forward. Come back. Given up your fancy life? Don't lie to yourself. You made your choice. The words cut deep, but Ethan couldn't argue. He'd chosen ambition over love, and now he was staring at the consequences. I'm here now, he said. I want to make this right. Riley shook his head, his eyes glistening. It's not that simple. Noah doesn't know you. He's happy, Ethan. He's got a life here, a good one. I won't let you disrupt that. I don't want to disrupt anything, Ethan said, desperation creeping into his voice. I just want to know him, to know you again. Riley stood, pacing the small kitchen. You don't get it. This isn't about you anymore. It's about Noah. He's my whole world, and I've spent 9 years protecting him from the kind of pain you caused me. Ethan's throat tightened. He stood, stepping closer, though Riley flinched at his approach. I'm not that person anymore, Ethan said. I've spent 10 years building something I thought would make me happy, but it's empty without you. Seeing you yesterday, Seeing Noah, it's like I've been asleep all this time. Riley's eyes searched his, and for a moment, Ethan saw a flicker of the man who'd once loved him, the man who'd laughed with him under the stars, who'd promised forever. But then Riley turned away. "I need time, Ethan. This is too much." Ethan nodded, though it felt like his heart was breaking all over again. "I'll wait," he said, "as long as it takes." Over the next few days, Ethan stayed in Willow Creek, renting a room at the inn and visiting the bakery daily. He didn't push, didn't demand. He just showed up, helping with small tasks, making Noah laugh with silly stories about his tech gadgets. Noah was bright, curious, and unafraid to ask questions. "Are you famous?" he asked one day, eyeing Ethan's expensive watch. Ethan chuckled. "Not really. Just a guy who makes apps." "Cool," Noah said, then ran off to help Riley. Ethan watched them, father and son, their bond unbreakable. He felt like an outsider, but every smile from Noah, every glance from Riley, gave him hope. One evening, as they closed the bakery, Riley let Ethan walk them home. The streets were quiet, the air crisp with the promise of winter. Noah ran ahead, kicking leaves, while Ethan and Riley walked in silence. Finally, Riley spoke. "He likes you," he said softly. "That scares me." "Why?" Ethan asked. "Because I don't know if I can trust you not to leave again," Riley said, his voice raw. "Not just me, but him." Ethan stopped, turned to face him. "I'm not going anywhere, Riley. I've spent 10 years running from us. I'm done running." Riley's eyes glistened, but he didn't respond. They walked on, the weight of their past heavy between them. But for the first time, Ethan felt a spark of possibility. Maybe, just maybe, he could rebuild what he'd broken. Weeks passed, and Ethan became a fixture in Willow Creek. He worked from his laptop at the bakery, handling conference calls between deliveries and dishwashing. The townsfolk whispered about the millionaire in their midst, about the preacher's son who'd come back, but Ethan didn't care. He was there for Riley and Noah, and every moment with them felt like a second chance. Noah was a whirlwind of energy, dragging Ethan into his world of comic books and soccer games. One afternoon, they kicked a ball around in the park, Noah giggling as Ethan pretended to fumble. "You're terrible at this," Noah teased, his green eyes sparkling. "Yeah, well, I'm better at coding," Ethan shot back, ruffling Noah's hair. The gesture felt natural, but it sent a pang through him. He was falling in love with this boy, his son, and it terrified him how much it would hurt to lose him. Riley watched from a distance, his expression unreadable. Later, as they sat on a park bench, Noah napping against Riley's shoulder, Ethan spoke. "He's incredible, Riley. You've done an amazing job." Riley's lips twitched, almost a smile. "He's my everything, but he's got your stubborn streak." Ethan laughed, the sound easing the tension. "I want to be part of his life," he said, "if you'll let me." Riley looked at him, really looked, and Ethan felt exposed, like Riley could see every mistake he'd ever made. "I'm trying," Riley said, "but it's hard to trust you when I still don't understand why you left." Ethan took a deep breath. He'd avoided this conversation, but he couldn't anymore. "My dad," he started, his voice low. "He found out about us. That last night, he confronted me, told me I was a disgrace. He said if I stayed, he'd make your life hell. I was scared, Riley. I thought leaving was the only way to protect you." Riley's eyes widened, then softened with something like understanding. "You should have told me," he said. "We could have faced it together." "I know that now," Ethan said, his voice breaking. "But back then, I thought I was saving you. I was wrong." Riley reached out, his hand brushing Ethan's for the first time. The touch was fleeting, but it set Ethan's heart racing. "I loved you so much," Riley whispered. "It broke me when you left." "I'm so sorry," Ethan said, tears stinging his eyes. "I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, if you let me." Riley didn't respond, but he didn't pull away either. They sat in silence, Noah's soft snores the only sound, and Ethan felt a fragile hope take root. That night, Ethan lay awake at the inn, replaying Riley's words. He'd hurt the man he loved, but maybe he could heal those wounds. The next day, he surprised Noah with a new soccer ball, and the boy's delighted grin was worth every penny. Riley watched, his guard lowering with each passing day. But not everyone in Willow Creek was happy about Ethan's return. His father, Pastor James Caldwell, still held sway over the town's conservative heart. Ethan ran into him at the grocery store, and the encounter was like stepping into a storm. "You shouldn't be here," James said, his voice cold. "You're stirring up trouble." "I'm here for my family," Ethan replied, standing his ground. "I'm not that scared kid anymore." James's eyes narrowed. "You think you could just waltz back and play father? That boy doesn't need you. Riley doesn't need you." The words stung, but Ethan held his gaze. "That's not your call to make." He walked away, heart pounding, but the encounter lit a fire in him. He wasn't leaving, not this time. He'd fight for Riley and Noah, no matter what it took. Winter crept into Willow Creek, blanketing the town in snow. Ethan's days settled into a rhythm. Mornings at the bakery, afternoons with Noah, evenings stealing moments with Riley. They were cautious, circling each other like skaters on thin ice, but every shared glance, every accidental touch, felt like a step toward something new. One night, Riley invited Ethan to dinner at the cottage. Noah was asleep upstairs, and the house was quiet, lit only by candles and the glow of a fire. Riley had cooked simple, hearty food that reminded Ethan of their teenage years, sneaking meals in the back of Riley's old pickup. They talked, really talked, for the first time in years. "I was so angry at you," Riley admitted, swirling his wine. "But I missed you every day. Even when I hated you, I missed you." Ethan reached across the table, his hand covering Riley's. This time, Riley didn't pull away. "I miss you too," Ethan said. "Every deal I closed, every zero in my bank account. It meant nothing without you." Riley's eyes searched his, and then, slowly, he leaned forward. Their kiss was tentative at first, a question more than a statement, but it deepened, years of longing pouring into it. When they pulled apart, Riley's cheeks were flushed, his eyes bright with tears. "I don't know if I can do this again," Riley whispered, "but I want to try." Ethan's heart soared, but before he could respond, a crash from upstairs startled them. Noah stood at the top of the stairs, wide-eyed. "Are you guys fighting?" he asked, voice small. "No, buddy," Riley said, rushing to him. "Everything's okay." Noah looked at Ethan, then back at Riley. "Is he staying?" Riley glanced at Ethan, a silent question in his eyes. Ethan nodded, his throat tight. "I'm staying," he said, "if you'll have me." Noah grinned, and Riley's shoulders relaxed. It wasn't a promise, not yet, but it was a start. The next morning, Ethan woke to a text from his assistant. A major investor was pulling out of his company, threatening his empire. He could have flown back to California, saved the deal, but he didn't. For the first time, he chose Riley and Noah over his ambition. He called his team, delegated the crisis, and stayed. But trouble was brewing in Willow Creek. James Caldwell had been rallying the town's old guard, spreading rumors about Ethan's intentions. At a town hall meeting, James confronted him publicly, accusing him of using his wealth to manipulate Riley and Noah. The room buzzed with tension, but Ethan stood tall. "I'm here because I love them," he said, his voice steady. "I made mistakes, but I'm not running anymore. Riley and Noah are my family, and I'll do whatever it takes to earn their trust." The crowd was silent, then a few people clapped, slowly at first, then louder. Riley, standing in the back, met Ethan's eyes, a small smile breaking through his guarded expression. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was a crack in the wall. Later, as they walked home, Noah slipped his hand into Ethan's. "You're cool," he said simply, and Ethan felt like he'd won the world. Spring arrived, melting the snow and softening the edges of Willow Creek. Ethan had extended his stay, renting a small house near Riley's. He was no longer the billionaire on a mission. He was just Ethan, learning to be a father, a partner, a man who stayed. His company survived the investor crisis, but Ethan stepped back, hiring a CEO, to run the day-to-day. His heart was here in this small town, with a family he'd almost lost. Riley and Ethan grew closer, their love rekindling like a fire that had never fully gone out. They took Noah on hikes, laughed over late-night movies, and rebuilt trust one moment at a time. But the question of Noah's future hung between them. Ethan wanted to tell him the truth, that he was his father, but Riley wasn't ready. "He needs to know you won't leave," Riley said one evening, as they sat on the cottage porch. "He's been through enough." Ethan nodded, his hand finding Riley's. "I'm not going anywhere. I swear it." The turning point came on Noah's 10th birthday. Ethan and Riley threw a party at the bakery, the room filled with balloons and laughter. Noah, wearing a lopsided party hat, hugged Ethan tightly. "Thanks for being here," he said, and Ethan's heart broke and mended in the same breath. After the guests left, Riley took Ethan's hand and led him to the back, where Noah was waiting. "Noah," Riley said, his voice steady, "there's something we need to tell you." Noah's eyes widened, but he listened as Riley explained, gently, that Ethan was his father. Ethan braced for anger, for tears, but Noah just looked at him, then hugged him again. "I kind of figured," he said with a shy grin. "You look like me." Ethan laughed through tears, pulling Noah and Riley into a tight embrace. For the first time, he felt whole. Months later, Ethan and Riley stood on that same cliffside from the image prompt, the autumn forest ablaze below them. Noah was at school, and they'd stolen this moment for themselves. Ethan took Riley's hand, his heart full. "I left you once," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I'm here now, and I'll be here every day if you'll have me." Riley smiled, his eyes shining. "I never stopped loving you, Ethan, even when I tried." They kissed, the world falling away, and Ethan knew this was the life he'd been searching for, not in boardrooms or bank accounts, but here with Riley and Noah. The past couldn't be undone, but the future was theirs to build. As they stood there, a wooden signpost nearby bore the words they'd carved together. "A love lost, a child found, destiny awaits." It was their story, their promise, their second chance.